Hey guys, my name is Maggie and here are a couple of care tips for the gorgeous Begonia Maculata. It's also known as the polka dot begonia. The top side of the leaves are splattered by silvery white spots whilst the underside develops into a deep maroon. It belongs to a group of cane begonias. The stems remind me of bamboo, but they're pretty bendy, so they need the support of a stake to stay upright. You can use almost anything here. I've just repurposed some stakes and clips used on orchids before. You don't have to stake up every single part of the plant though. For example, I left this particular stem alone and within a few weeks it pushed out a multitude of new growth. I just love the way the stem elegantly slopes forward. Now let's talk about what it takes to keep the Begonia Maculata happy and thriving. It needs 3 crucial things: warm temperatures, humidity above 40%, and plenty of good airflow. Let's turn to a couple of scenarios where people commonly get tripped up. Scenario 1. You keep the humidity high above 40% by situating your Begonia Maculata close to a humidifier inside your home or by regular misting. There's plenty of good airflow from a nearby window or door, but it's too darn cold. A sudden blast of a chilly wind from outside shocks your plant, the leaves yellow and drop dead. Scenario 2. You provide good airflow with lots of warm temperatures, but there's hardly any humidity. The weather's been so hot and dry, even your eyes feel like sandpaper. You get crispy leaf edges, eventually the leaves yellow and drop dead. Scenario 3. You keep the humidity high and the temperature warm, but there's next to no airflow. Eventually the plant develops a fungal disease called powdery mildew, and guess what? The leaves yellow and drop dead. Guys, you gotta love a Venn diagram. My Begonia Maculata had all 3 elements. I simply kept it outdoors on a bench underneath my patio and allowed the humid, warm, breezy climate, which naturally stays around all year in Queensland, Australia, do its thing. The happy days didn't last long though. One particularly cold night gave way to a very hot and humid day, and as a result, condensation lingered on the leaves of the Begonia Maculata. The wet leaves triggered a terrible fungal infection of powdery mildew all over the plant. They look like white, fluffy, or feathery satellites of doom, and it sends the plant spiraling into a slow fungal death. Does this look like anything like what you might have on yours? If so, don't beat yourself up about it. It's a pretty common ailment for begonias in general. If you're struggling to differentiate between the deadly powdery mildew from the normal white spots upon the Begonia Maculata leaves, just look at the back of the leaves. Powdery mildew will reveal these dark, shadowed lesions on the backside. To tackle the infection, I sprayed the plant down thoroughly with a store-bought plant fungicidal spray. Despite this, I still ended up having to prune off and discard a bunch of leaves which were too far gone. Worried that I might lose the plant entirely, I decided to cut off a portion of the plant that didn't look completely overrun by infection and propagate that in water. So I located the node, which is that segmented line along the plant stem, and plonked the cutting directly into room temperature water. Within a few weeks, there was plenty of root growth, and the propagation even pushed out a new leaf too. Unfortunately, the powdery mildew did come back a few more times, so I had to treat it again with the fungicidal spray. Eventually, my Begonia Maculata became beautiful. It pushed out new healthy leaves and even flowered for the summer. I still keep my Begonia Maculata outside on a bench under my patio. It gets a constant supply of bright indirect light, but it's sheltered enough from any harsh direct rays of sunlight that could scorch the leaves. That's the lighting it needs to produce healthy leaves and flowers. Now let's talk about watering. Because the leaves are prone to developing powdery mildew, I avoid getting the leaves wet in general. It never gets rained on where it lives on the bench, and even when I do water the plant, I pour the room temperature water directly upon the soil itself, making sure to avoid getting the leaves wet. My go-to technique is a zigzag drizzle upon the soil, and I repeat this process a few times until I can see a trickle of water streaming out of the drainage holes on the bottom of the nursery pot. Once there's no more water trickling out of the drainage holes, I return the plastic nursery pot into its decorative ceramic pot. I know it's the wrong size. It's like wearing mismatched socks. It does the job, okay? Keeping the plastic nursery pot in another ceramic pot prevents the whole plant from toppling over because it gets pretty top heavy. In terms of the frequency of watering, a lot of people find that their Begonia Maculata will prefer to have constantly moist but not soggy soil. I personally find this to be a very tricky balance to strike, to have an evenly and consistently moist soil that doesn't end up rotting away the roots beneath the soil by drowning it with H2O. And you already know that I'm an underwatering queen, so I have frequently left my Begonia Maculata bone dry for a day or two too long. But you know what? It's doing okay. In fact, I think it's safer to wait it out between waterings and allow the soil to dry out sufficiently before you water it again, as long as you don't forget about it entirely. You can check when it needs to be watered by frequently picking up the plastic nursery pot to get a ballpark gauge of its weight in your hands. Obviously, the lighter it is, the drier it is. Or you could dig your index finger an inch into the soil of the pot to feel how dry it's become. Point is, always check to see if it's sufficiently dry before watering again. Side note, only true Begonia Maculata widei would have pure white flowers. You can see mine's got a tinge of pink in the flowers, so it's probably a Begonia Maculata hybrid of sorts, but it doesn't change how I feel about it. By the way, don't worry about pruning the flowers off. I notice that it just falls off by itself when the blooms are ready to say goodbye. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed these tips and tricks on how to keep your Begonia Maculata healthy and thriving. I hope that by sharing my struggles with powdery mildew, you'll be able to avoid the same mistake I made. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, or let me know in the comments how you fungus proof your begonias. Bye!